What's going on, everybody? Look, after months of speculation, months of conjecture, months of will it happen, won't it happen? Nah, they're not going to do that. Well, it's finally happening. We finally got the update that everyone has been looking for. What's going on, everybody? My name is Stephen J. Gaither. This is HBCU Game Day, and big news came out on Thursday afternoon as Norfolk State University and Delaware State University, they're going to play a football game, and they're going to be playing at an NFL stadium near it's not near, it's in Philadelphia. They're going to be playing at Lincoln Financial Center, aka the Link, home of the Philadelphia Eagles. And why would these two FCS programs be playing each other in an NFL stadium? Well, that's because this guy right here, I don't want to, that's Michael Vick. I'm gonna leave it right there. Michael Vick, and there you go, boom. Michael Vick right there. Yep. So Michael Vick and DeSean Jackson, rookie head coaches at Norfolk State and Delaware State University, are going to be bringing their football programs to the same field where they used to connect on the field for big plays. This is something that has been talked about since December when Michael Vick was hired as the head coach at Norfolk State University and DeSean Jackson was hired as the head coach over at Delaware State University. So there's been a lot of excitement, a lot of potential buildup. Both guys have talked about the potential of this. You had DeSean Jackson actually talking about it last week. I wrote an article about it on HBCUGameDay.com. I believe it's the Up and Adams show. And, he was continuing to talk about it, saying it was, in the works, still in contact. But he's said this kind of all along. We got in, we're getting into June now, where we're only a couple months away from the season. But the game has been officially set. Again, it's not going to be on Saturday, November 1st, when it was initially intended to be. But it's actually going to be on Thursday, October 30th. It's going to be a night game. Probably going to be on the ESPN family and networks, on the ESPNU. We'll see. That hasn't been let out yet. Those things usually come along a little bit in the summer. It's going to be interesting. These are two football programs that have not had a lot of success in this decade. Delaware State has had one MEAC football title this decade. That was in 2007. They haven't had a winning season since 2012. Norfolk State University had the 2011 MEAC title, their only title in the conference since joining in 1997. However, that was vacated because they violated NCAA rules. One of those things. So neither one of these programs have been holding down the fort in HBCU football or even in MEAC football. There's a pecking order like there is everywhere, and in this current iteration of the MEAC where there are only 6 football teams, North Carolina Central and South Carolina State have been dominating it. And everybody else has kind of been, trying to roll for third. That's just the way that it's been. And most years, Norfolk State and Delaware State aren't really getting towards that third. They've been in the bottom third of a 6-team conference. And so, both of the administrators at Delaware State as well as Norfolk State decided that they wanted to try something different. They are, the MEAC way is to, have these coaches who have come up the ranks, who have, put in their time for them to come and develop themselves and then develop players. That's what the MEAC way is, what we've been sold. When Deion Sanders came and coached Jackson State and led them to 2 SWAC titles, there was a lot of disdain on this side, on the East Coast, on the MEAC, for, getting a celebrity coach, who had never been a college coach before, former NFL star who never played at an HBCU, and bringing him in there. But we saw what happened with Deion Sanders and Jackson State. He reinvigorated that program, led them to back-to-back SWAC titles. They didn't win the Celebration Bowl, and the MEAC people love to tell you that. They love to tell you they didn't win the Celebration Bowl, but they put Jackson State definitely back on a national pedestal. And we see what's happened since then. Coach T.C. Taylor and his staff have who were a part of it, they came and they built on what was there. And last year they won the Celebration Bowl, the HBCU national title. So there was, so there's precedent here, but this is new in the MEAC. Again, the top dogs that you talk about in the MEAC right now are South Carolina State. Their coach is Chennis Berry, who's a lifer, HBCU, paid his dues, developed, and he's just become a flat-out star. He's won conference championships in his last 3 seasons, first at the SIAC Division II level and last year at the MEAC. And then you have Trey Oliver, another HBCU guy, cut his teeth there. He's been at a couple different places, came back home to his alma mater, led them to the national title in 2022. And, just really solid, really great coaches. And again, the MEAC has always talked about that they're the developers and development and all of that stuff. But but now we're in this day and age where the transfer portal is real. Everybody's losing their best players. NIL's the thing. Everybody wants some money. DeSean Jackson just talked about that last week. Everybody wants some money. And so these are when you're two programs who aren't in great football destinations, there aren't programs who are known to be powerhouses even within the HBCU MEAC world, they had to try something. They had to try something to get out of the cellar. And what they did was they kind of went with the Jackson State SWAC plan, which was to go and get a guy who didn't play at a HBCU but has a name and has brand recognition, and get them to come to their program and try to help get resources to undergird what they were lacking and what they hadn't been able to do the old-fashioned way. You can love it or you can hate it. I think it's pretty brilliant because anybody who has watched, and will be honest with you, even grads of DSU and NSU will tell you that nobody gave a damn about either of these schools as far as football programs. They just haven't, and not in a long time. Football is kind of like a diversion. And the energy that has been injected to not only these two schools, but the MEAC and the HBCU world, I would say, has been really good. And so we're seeing that manifest itself not only with this game, but last week we also had news from it was a little bit later last month. Last month we had news that the MEAC is going to be moving its media day to Baltimore at the Baltimore Ravens facility. Now, and I can say this because I'm a guy who I've covered the MEAC for 20 years. I've gone to pretty much every MEAC media day since 2014, 2015, except for maybe one. There's never been a need for it to go there. There's never been a need for it to be at an NFL stadium. But, from the moment that these two guys got hired, I said, okay, MEAC Media Day, a lot of times, if I'm honest, it's me and the HBCU Game Day crew and, my partner, Luke Williams at Black College Sports Page. Shout out to my guy, Dr. Cavill, and his guys and the local beat writers over at Norfolk and not much else besides the SIDs. So I already anticipated that would be different. And, the fact that they're partnering with the Baltimore Ravens says that it's going to be different. So I look forward to seeing that. I'm really looking forward to MEAC Media Day. We are 5 weeks. We're like 6-7 weeks away from that, but it'll be here quickly. But again, just another example of how, these two programs, the AD, Dr. Melody Webb over at Norfolk State and the president over at Delaware State, were really just integral into having the foresight to look at what they have, not only as a football program, but as a product. And the product in both of their institutions has increased dramatically. I went to Norfolk State for their spring game earlier back in April, and I'd been to a Norfolk State spring game before, and I'd never seen anything like that. There was an atmosphere, there was a buzz around there that just did not exist before Michael Vick decided to come home and bring his talents back to the 757. And, there was, Allen Iverson and Tyrod Taylor and all of these guys. They're bringing an energy and a vibe there that has not been associated with Norfolk State football. And there's, making, you talk about products, they're selling Michael Vick jerseys with Norfolk State with Norfolk State colors and Spartans, and part of that is going back to the program as well. So it's just really interesting to see this all unfold and kind of see how this has evolved to where, again, when Jackson State did this 5 years ago, a lot of people kind of looked at it funny, but, there are some folks who are really, deciding that this is, to have someone with the cachet of a Michael Vick or a DeSean Jackson can maybe circumvent some of the shortcomings that they have. So I'm all for it. I think it was great. I think it's great for the league. And, if you're in North Carolina Central, if you're South Carolina State, you're probably like, okay, yeah, this is cool, but, when we get them on the field, we're going to take advantage of this. So, we'll see. Only time will tell. But that's what's going on. Again, October 30th, we are going to see Delaware State at Norfolk State in Lincoln Financial Field. It's going to be really interesting to see how it goes. But you guys let me know what you guys think, if this is the right move, if it's maybe a little too ambitious, and if you think folks will come and pack it out if, one or both teams are not really doing so hot. So let me know what you guys think in the comments, and we will catch you guys in the next video. Please make sure you guys are going to HBCUGameDay.com every day for the latest news in HBCU sports and culture.